So good afternoon to all of you. And I would like to first thank Professor Sen for that wonderful introduction that he gave with respect to Mīmāṁsā, Nyaya and Vyakarana and grammar. Because I think grammar is kind of the basis for understanding many of these concepts. So he's kind of laid the foundation for us to talk about whatever we wanted to do in terms of Mīmāṁsā and its applications. So thank you, sir, and we'll continue from here. So our session is divided into two parts. One is about the principles of Mīmāṁsā that we have used for interpretation of imperatives. So in terms of the logical formalism and so on, Bama will talk about it. So I will introduce the Mīmāṁsā concepts that we have used so that the kind of these two will tie up together for all of you. Okay. So this is our guru, is my teacher, Gopal Deshkan Swami, he was a Mīmāṁsā Shiromani. And so whatever I have learned in terms of my Sanskrit and all the philosophy and everything is from him. So my first thanks to him before I start with the rest of the things. Okay. Okay. Not sure if you can see the whole thing. All right. Okay. So this is just an outline of the various Indian texts that we typically have, right? So we have a shloka which says, Angani Vedas Chatvaraha, Mīmāṁsā Nyāyavistaraha, Puranam Dharmashastram cha Vidya Heta Chaturdasha. So there are supposed to be 14 different domains of knowledge which cover the entire domain of everything that is to be learned, kind of. So it basically says that you have the 4 Vedas, and then you have that is the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Athra Veda, which most of us would be familiar with. And then there are 6 Angas, okay, or subsidiaries in order to interpret these Vedas. So the 6 Angas are basically Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Jyotisha, and Chandas. So Shiksha basically deals with pronunciation, how the words have to be pronounced, the tone, and so on. Kalpa deals with the, with respect to performance of all the rituals. There are various formations that are done. So the geometry and other aspects of that are dealt with in Kalpa. Vyakarana, of course, is grammar, so which is very important as we saw in the previous session. Nirukta deals with understanding the meanings of words. You can look at it as a glossary or as a synonym kind of a thing. And Jyotisha is about astronomy, so it tells you to identify the place and time at which different sacrifices are to be performed. And Chandas is basically about prosody. Okay, so rhyme and rhythm and prosody. So those are things that are covered there. So these are supposed to be 6 Angas, which are all important for us to understand the Vedas. And in addition to that, so this is the first 10. So you have 4 Vedas and 6 Angas. Then you have Mīmāṁsā, Nyāyavistara. So Mīmāṁsā and Nyaya again are 2 different topics which are very important. Mīmāṁsā deals with the interpretation of Vedas. So it's interpretation, which is why all this grammar and all the understanding of the Shabda Bodha, of how words come together and how the meaning is conveyed, becomes very important. So that is an important aspect. So Mīmāṁsā. Nyaya again is about logic. So which is also again another important topic that is considered. In addition to that, we also have Purana and Dharma Shastra. Sometimes the shloka is replaced with Purana and Itihasamcha. So Purana refers to the different, mythological stories that we talk about. And we also have Itihasa, which are the epics, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and so on. And Dharma Shastra. So that's another major body of work that we have in terms of how the various school, whatever things that we have do are to be interpreted correctly and so on. So those are different schools. In addition to this, of course, we have some Agamas. We also have Upaveda, which are like, you have, if you're talking about, for instance, Ayurveda and then other kinds of things, which also come under these different texts that we have. So these are supposed to be various topics that one would study as domains of knowledge, like we study different topics today, right? So these are considered to be the different topics of study in our traditional knowledge point of view. So out of this, of course, our focus is on Mīmāṁsā, right? So that's why I am looking at this whole thing. So a very quick, brief introduction to Mīmāṁsā. So as I said, Mīmāṁsā is about the interpretation of the Vedas, of the Vedic injunctions. And the Vedas are considered to be apaurushaya, right? So apaurushaya meaning that it is not done by any purusha, by any human being. So it is not created by a human being. So it's kind of supposed to exist forever. So it's a nitya. Okay, it's always been there. So it's a body of knowledge, and it has been revealed and passed on through oral traditions, as has been with our Vedic tradition. It's been passed on through oral traditions. Right? And so this Mīmāṁsā Shastra, or the science of interpretation of the Vedas, was formulated in a very formal manner by Jaimini Maharshi, sage Jaimini. Right? So, and following his work, there's been a lot of other work which talks about how these things are to be interpreted and so on. We'll take a look at that. Okay. So Mīmāṁsā, the word basically means Matum Ichcha, Mīmāṁsā. So basically it's about trying to understand, to think about it, to reflect, to investigate, interpret what is said in the Vedas. So that is the idea of this body of this particular theory of Mīmāṁsā. And we talk about Karma Mīmāṁsā and or rather you can say Purva Mīmāṁsā and Uttara Mīmāṁsā, because we have Vedas and we also have the Upanishads, which are supposed to be the later part of the Vedas. So, so you have Karma Mīmāṁsā or Purva Mīmāṁsā, which deals with the Veda part, which is the ritualistic part. And we have Uttara Mīmāṁsā, which deals with the interpretation of the Upanishads. So here our focus, when we say Mīmāṁsā, typically we are looking at the Veda part. So that is the first part of the Vedas, so the ritual part of the Vedas. So this, so as given by Jaimini Maharshi, say Jaimini, the entire Purva Mīmāṁsā part is arranged into 12 chapters, which deal with various aspects of how the interpretation is to be done. Okay. Okay. So these, this entire Mīmāṁsā text that he has written is written in the form of sutras. So sutras, you can look at them as short aphorisms or very short sentences, which are very precise. So I'll just come to what that means. So this is in the form of sutras, and it's, as I said, it's organized in 12 chapters, 12 adhyayas they are called. And each adhyaya, each chapter has 4 sections, which are called as pada, 4 padas. And yeah, typically it's 4 padas. In this case, of course, the 3rd, 6th and 10th adhyayas have 8 padas. Okay, there are 8 sections in there. Totally, there are 60 padas, 907 what are called as adhikarana. So adhikarana, you can look at it as a topic. So every pada will have certain adhikarana, certain topics that it will deal with. And each adhikarana will have different numbers of sutras. So that is how that adhikarana is constructed. So total number of sutras that we have is about 2,745 sutras. Okay. So this is the structure of the Mīmāṁsā Shastra that we have. And this is to give an idea of how much of work has been, carried on before Jaimini and after Jaimini as well, in terms of what has happened in terms of Mīmāṁsā. So with respect to interpretation of Vedas, of course, starting from Brahma, Prajapati, Indra, Surya and Vasishta, and then Parashara and Vyasa, who was the guru for Jaimini Maharshi, we have had different aspects of Mīmāṁsā that have been talked about. But it's almost from the time of Jaimini Maharshi, which is something like 300 BC or something, that it has been formulated and is available for us now in a written form for us to be able to discuss and learn about it. So after Maharshi Jaimini, where did I go? Yeah, after Maharshi Jaimini, we have a number of people who have worked on different aspects of Mīmāṁsā, of giving a more detailed explanation of what he has given in terms of these sutras. So we have works by Baudhayana, Upavarsha, Devaswamin, Bhavadasa, Bhatramitra, and Shabra. The Shabra Swami's Vyakhyan, that his explanations are considered to be very elaborate. And following that, we have the Bhata and Prabhakara Mata, the 2 different schools of thought that have there in terms of how these instructions are to be interpreted. So those 2 schools of thought, Kumarila Bhatta and Prabhakara. And also we have another one by Murari Mishra. And there are, of course, following that, we have many other works which have gone ahead and interpreted it, simplified things, and so that it becomes easier for people to understand and so on. So we have Nyayamala, Shastra Deepika, but these are all very, very excellent treatises which talks about how various things are to be interpreted and so on. So and as an introductory, just as an introduction to Mīmāṁsā, we have these books called Artha Sangraha and Mīmāṁsā Paribhasha, so by Lavakshi Bhaskara and then Krishna Yajva. So in fact, most of the work that we have done, we have taken the principles from as given by Mīmāṁsā Paribhasha and Artha Sangraha, which are like very, very simple texts to understand. And from that, we have kind of taken extracted the concepts, and we have tried to apply it for logical interpretation and so on. So this gives you a kind of big picture of amount of knowledge that is actually available in this particular area. Okay. Yeah, coming to this form in which it is given, as it is given in the form of sutras and adhikarana, right? So what is a sutra? Sutra, we have a definition for sutra which says alpaksharam asandigdam saravat vishwatomukham astobham anavadyam cha sutram sutra vido viduhu. So it is alpakshara. So typically it has very limited number of characters in it. Okay, it's supposed to be very short. And it is asandigdha. Asandigdha means that there is no ambiguity in it. It's supposed to be unambiguous. And saravat, which means it's just of essence. It has the essence of whatever is to be conveyed. Vishwatomukham basically means that it is kind of applicable in many instances. And astobham anavadhyam. Astobham meaning that there are no meaningless characters which are there in it. And anavadyam, there is no fault or any blemish that is there in it. Okay. So that's the definition for a sutra. So a sutra is to be written with this kind of a structure. Okay. And so I said sutras, many sutras form an adhikarana, which is a topic. Okay. So how is this adhikarana organized? It will consist of many sutras. And so when you look at an adhikarana, to understand any topic, right, what are the various aspects it should have? So again, there is a definition for adhikarana, for a topic that is to be discussed. So where we talk about 5 different parts. Okay. So we have Vishayaha, Vishayaschaiva, Purva Pakshas Tatotharam, Sangatishcheti Panchangam, Shastre Adhikaranam Smritam. So in this Shastra, Adhikarana, when you talk of a topic, there are 5 different elements to it. The 5 elements basically are Vishaya. Vishaya basically talks about what is the Vishaya is the topic of discussion. What is the Vedic passage? For instance, in Mīmāṁsā, it's some Vedic passage that is taken up and its interpretation is being discussed. So that Vedic passage which is taken up for discussion, that is the Vishaya. Okay. So Vishaya refers to the doubt that arises with respect to interpreting that particular passage. So you have a passage, you read it, maybe you don't understand it, right? You may have a doubt in terms of does it mean this or that. So there is a doubt which comes up there. So the doubt is part of the understanding, right? Okay. So that is first. Now comes the Purva Paksha. So you have a particular, so when a person is trying to interpret a passage in a particular manner, they also have to deal with what are the opponent views for it. So when I say it's a doubt basically means this or that. So there is a this and that. So you may want to establish a that, but you will have an opponent who has established a this or who wants to establish a this, right? A or B. So somebody wants to establish A. So what is that view of the opponent who is establishing it to be A? Okay. Then comes Siddhanta, which is your view. Right? Your view is about how you are going to establish your Siddhanta, your view, right? So establishing your point of view, which you do by refuting the opponent's view. So you have to give an answer as to why that's not correct and establish your view, right? So this is the Siddhanta. So this is there. Another aspect that has to be there typically in an Adhikarana is Sangati. So Sangati, you can look at it as connection with respect to the context. Okay, so whatever you are talking about in Adhikarana, the content that you are discussing in the topic being discussed, cannot be something which is not connected to this entire body of knowledge and cannot be something which is not connected to what has been said previously also, right? So when we talk of understanding overall, the Sangati or this continuity or connection with respect to things also becomes important. Okay. So we'll just spend a few minutes on the Sangati. Yeah.
Can I add just one thing? In some texts, I found a 6th part of the Prayojana.
Prayojana. Okay. Sangati. Okay. So there is also, as correct.
Is also one of the authors.
Right. Okay. So here I pointed out 5 parts. There are also some texts, as he's pointing out, where 6 parts are given. There's one more added to this, in addition to these 5, which is called Prayojana. So Prayojana meaning what is the benefit of that? What is the result of that? So that also has to be specified. So these are the different parts that we have. So coming to Sangati, so this connective nature of things that we have, the relevance that we have. So Sangati basically is what we call as Pada Padarthayoho Smarya Smarakabhava Sambandhaha or Anantarabhidhana Prayojaka Jigyasa Janaka Jnana Vishyatam. That is, it's something, that Sangati is something which is connecting you to a previous one, right? So the connection typically is in such a manner that it creates that interest in you to know about what is coming next. Something has happened. Oh, so having this, this having been said, what is going to happen next? So it has to generate that kind of curiosity in you. So that's a kind of a loose translation of whatever is over there. Okay. So that is something should be there in a Sangati. There again, when we talk of Sangati, there are different types of Sangati that we talk about. So one is called Shastra Sangati, which means that whatever is being discussed should be related to that particular Shastra, to that entire body of knowledge as a whole. So if you're taking a Mīmāṁsā Sutra, it must be related to Mīmāṁsā. You can't take a sutra from Vyakarana and put it in Mīmāṁsā Shastra, right? So it has to be related to that particular body of knowledge. That is Shastra Sangati. And Adhyaya Sangati is the connection with respect to that particular Adhyaya. We said that the entire thing will be divided into chapters. So obviously different chapters will have different topics that are being dealt with. So it should be relevant to that particular Adhyaya as well. That thing. And similarly with respect to the Pada, again we said Adhyayas are divided into different sections. So it should make sense to fit into that section as well. And Adhikarana. So the Sutra must also fit into that particular Adhikarana. And between Adhikaranas, also there has to be a connectivity. So typically there are many types of connectivity. I've just mentioned a few of them here to get an idea of what it is. Okay, so you can have something like Upodghata Sangati. So Upodghata Sangati basically means you're introducing a topic. So there's nothing been said before, but you're introducing a topic. So you just want to make an opening, right? So Upodghata Sangati could be there. Or it could be an Apavada. Something has been said and you're now giving an exception to that. So it's like saying a rule has been said and now you are giving an exception to that. It can be an Akshepa Sangati. There is something has been said, now you want to refute that, right? Or it could be something like you want to strengthen what has been said earlier. Okay, you said something, now you say one more thing to strengthen it. So like that there are different types of Sangati. That Sangati itself is a big topic in its own. So I'm not going into the details of that, but just to give a pointer that that's also an important aspect of an Adhikarana. Okay. Yeah. So now coming to the, we talked about the sutras, their structure and the Adhikarana. Now we said the entire thing is organized into 12 chapters, right? So Jaimini's entire knowledge on Mīmāṁsā is organized into 12 chapters. So this is just a brief of what is conveyed in these 12 chapters. Now, so we are identifying topics which are there in each chapter. So the sutras which are there in those chapters have to be related to these particular topics. So that's what we need to understand. So the first Adhyaya talks about Pramana, that is the validity of the source of knowledge, okay, about Dharma. So it talks about why this is, what is exactly Dharma, why this Veda is the Pramana, why that is the source of knowledge for us and so on. So then second chapter deals with Bheda, that is Dharma Bheda, different Dharma or different yagas that are there, how do you differentiate between them and so on. Third one talks about Sheshatva, Sheshatva, that is we have certain main sacrifices to be performed, and for performing those sacrifices there are certain subsidiaries or what are called as Anga or parts which are there. So how do you relate the main to the part, right? Connection between the main and the parts, that you can look at it as that's covered, and a lot of rules about which part should go along with which main and so on, so that you understand it in the correct manner. So those are there. Then the fourth one deals with Prayukti, which is, we can look at it as talks about subsidiaries which deal with several activities or several dharmas and so on. So then comes the fifth one deals with Krama. Okay, so when there are Vedic rituals or sacrifices to be performed, there are many activities, sub-activities which are to be done. So what is the order in which these have to be carried out? Sometimes the order may be as given in the text. Sometimes it may be different from what is given in the text. So how do I decide what should be the order? Right? So there are again rules in terms of how that is to be interpreted. So that is dealt with in the fifth chapter. Sixth chapter deals with Adhikara, that is who has the eligibility to do a sacrifice or who is the beneficiary of that sacrifice. Right? So a particular, you may say this sacrifice has to be done by certain, for a certain purpose. So one who is desirous of getting that particular result becomes the beneficiary of that. So he is the one who is interested in doing that. So you kind of specify who is the beneficiary or the one who will enjoy the result of that sacrifice. So then we have in the seventh chapter, we have something called Atidesha. So Atidesha is a very unique concept that we have in Mīmāṁsā. So that is when we have these different rituals. So rituals are divided into what are called as Pradhana or Prakriti and Vikriti. Okay, so Prakriti meaning that there are some rituals for which they are like main ones. Okay, so the entire details of how they are to be carried out are all specified. Then you have Vikriti Yaga, so Vikriti sacrifices, which are derived from these, but there are certain things which are different from that. So it's like the main sacrifice, but it's like a derived one from that. So in this derivation, there are certain things which will be changed. So what is changed, what is not changed, right? How do you derive from there? How much of it can be derived from there? Those are things to be talked about. Okay, so here there are two different types of methods. So one is, there are certain generic rules which are there, which is the sixth one, and you have which is called Samanya Atidesha, so common ones which are given. Then you have a Vishesha Atidesha, which is, there are certain specific methods of doing the substitution, so or derivation or substitution. Okay, so these are covered in two different chapters, chapter 6 and chapter 7. So again, so what happens is, when you bring from a Prakriti to a Vikriti, from a main to a modified sacrifice, so when you do that, there are certain modifications which need to be carried out. Okay, so how do you work out those modifications? So for that, there is a chapter which is chapter 9, and then you have so when you do that, when you also bring from the main to the modified one, certain things should not be carried out. Okay, how do you determine which is not to be carried out? So Badha was to be prevented. So that's the 10th chapter. So Tantra, here what happens is that now there are certain subsidiary activities, which are common to several principal activities. There are many pradhana sacrifices, to which there may be one activity which is kind of common to all of them. So in which case, if you're doing more than one activity, should you do multiple of these, or doing once is enough? So there again, identifying that, for all of them together, doing it once is enough, or do you need to do multiple times? That is discussed in the Tantra, okay, single performance to aid several principal activities. And in Prasanga, the 12th, this also deals with, when you have these combination of different sacrifices. So here, again, so once you have done a subsidiary for one principal activity, which also aids another principal activity, so there we say that we decide when it is necessary or not necessary to perform the second activity. So those kind of things are also discussed in this. So again, these are all very elaborate discussions that you have in each of these. Of course, we will not be touching on all of these now. So it's just to give you an introduction that so many things exist, so many rules exist. So that's the idea. Okay. So now coming to some of the important aspects which we need to keep in mind to understand our work. Okay. So as I said, the first chapter basically deals with establishing what is dharma, what is to be done, right? So the very first sutra that we have, that is, we say 1.1.1, which means it's the first adhikarana, or the first sutra of the first adhikarana of the first adhyaya. Okay. So there it starts with athato dharma jignasa. So which means it says, now therefore an inquiry into the nature of dharma. So now we are going to start looking at, this inquiry, start doing this inquiry into what is this dharma about. So there he talks about how do you define dharma, what is dharma, why Veda is related to something called dharma, and so on. So those are things that are talked about over there. And then the next sutra, right, immediately, once you know that yes, dharma is something which is needed, or dharma or merit, you can translate it loosely as merit. So the second sutra says chodana lakshanartho dharma. Now you define dharma. So what is this dharma? So it's defined as chodana lakshanartha dharma, which is the purpose which is distinguished or qualified by a Vedic injunction, is called as dharma. So chodana. So this is where we connect back to the previous talk also. So chodana lakshanartha. So chodana is basically that something which is inducing you to do an action. Huh?
Chodana
is a kriyayaha pravartaka. That is the one which induces you to perform the action. Right? So that is the chodana. So the chodana lakshanartha. So the chodana is the lakshana. That is the definition. And it has to end in a artha, which means it has to be for a meaningful purpose. It can't be something which is not meaningful. So something which is leading to a meaningful purpose, which is that which is inducing you to do that is dharma. So that's the understanding there. So once that is given, so this chodana, where does this chodana come? Where does this inducing to do something? That typically happens when you have commands that are to be given. Okay, in normal, when you have in the laukika or in the normal world, in worldly matters, there's a speaker and there is a listener. So the speaker says something and the listener listens to it. So as he gave an example of, if the army chief says, go and do this, the soldier will perform that action. So you have the speaker and the listener who are there to understand each other's intention and do this. But in the case of Vedas, we started with saying that Yeah, there is no speaker because the Vedas are considered to be apaurushaya. There is no human being who has given the who has spelled it out. So then there is no speaker. So how do I understand? Where does this force of doing something come? That force basically comes from the injunctions itself. So that chodana comes basically from that sentence itself, and in the sentence it basically comes from that verb, and in the verb it comes from that ling pratyaya that he talked about. There is that particular suffix which is added, right? That which gives that command, which says that this is an optative kind of a suffix, and it gives you that injunction. So that is what conveys this the motivation to do something. Okay, so that's what we see over here. And that is what is called as bhavana. He also concluded his talk with just that part, right? So bhavana basically means something is brought into being, right? Something is going to happen. So where is this bhavana? Something has to happen, right? For you to do the action. Before the action can actually take place, you need to have the intention of doing that action. And then to do that action, you need to know how to go about doing it. So that is why this bhavana is a very important aspect in Mīmāṁsā. So in terms of, because when you interpret that sentence, right, that sentence has to be interpreted as somebody is giving you a command to do something. Who is giving you a command? Veda is giving you the command. So what is that command that's being given? How do I interpret that command? Right? So that's the aspect over there. So this bhavana, as we said, the bhavana actually will deal with two aspects. The psychology, it deals with motivation, but motivation to do something, both at the psychological level and at the actual activity level. So this is how I loosely translated Shabdi Bhavana and Arti Bhavana. Okay, so we talk about two things here. He also mentioned that towards the end, Shabdi Bhavana and Arti Bhavana. So Shabdi Bhavana, you can look at it as when you hear that pratyaya, that suffix, that which gives you that command, right? So you, for instance, in English, if you say you should do this, the should over there is conveying that command to you. So like that, this ling pratyaya, so this particular suffix that we have, which comes with the words, that is conveying the information to you. So that Shabdi Bhavana, for everyone to understand the motivation to do something, there are three parts, as he said. Okay, so we talk about the objective, the instrument, and the procedure. So sadhya, sadhana, and iti kartavyata. So sadhya basically means what is to be achieved, the result that is to be obtained. Sadhana is the means, the instrument to be used for that. Okay. Third is iti kartavyata, that is the procedure. This is how it is to be done. Iti kartavyata basically means this is how it is to be performed. Okay. So the rules for how is it that it should be done. So for any activity, you can look at it, you can understand this even with respect to every activity that we perform. For every activity that we perform, if you look at it very deeply, there will always be something that you're trying to achieve, and there will be a means to achieve it, and there will be a procedure that we are following. Okay, so which is why something like Mīmāṁsā becomes applicable for us in day-to-day life, and these principles can be taken and applied for many activities that we are actually doing today. Okay, that is our motivation. Okay, that's our bhavana, so to say.
One more point here.
Yes, sir.
Maybe that could say why the Nayayikas disagreed with the philosophers. Because for them, the Vedas are also Purusha. It is not a human being, but it is the word of God.
God, okay.
He is omnipotent, omniscient, and all that.
All that, yes. But there is some person who has done it.
There is someone who is saying it.
Who is saying it, okay.
And who is authoritative.
Who is authoritative, okay.
So they don't have to.
They don't need the bhavana.
They say Bhaktura Vipraya.
Bhaktura Vipraya, okay. Yeah, so correct. Okay. So he is talking about the difference between Nyaya in terms of how they interpret it.
They didn't agree to this bhavana.
Yes, the Nayayikas don't agree to this concept of bhavana. So for them, there is a speaker. That speaker is God. So the God is the one who has given the Vedas. So you go by his. So whatever he has said, so based on that, you just perform whatever actions are to be done. So that's how they interpret it. But from a Mīmāṁsā point of view, this is the way it is being looked at. Okay. So we talk about three things. Okay. So there is the objective, the instrument, and the procedure. So here we have two parts. That is Shabdi Bhavana. That is when you listen to it, it tells you that something has to be done, right? Which is kind of motivating you to perform an action. So the objective of the Shabdi Bhavana, that when you listen to that command, whatever the suffix which gives the command, it generates that Arti Bhavana in you. That is, that it generates the interest to do an actual activity. Okay, that is the purpose of that. Okay, so once you think of that, so who is giving you that command? Where is it coming from? What is it, the instrument for that? The instrument for that is that knowledge of that particular termination, verbal termination, the suffix that we talked about. That he talked about it at length, right? The link, the suffix that you have. So that suffix itself is the instrument. That's what gives us that, that motivation. And what is the procedure? I mean, how do you feel that yes, I should perform something? Because there are certain statements called arthavada. Okay, arthavada basically means something which is either eulogy or a praise or a criticism. So a praise would, you have a sentence which is praising something along with a command. You typically know, you understand from there that, oh, maybe if I do something, something good is going to happen to me. Something is being praised. Or if there is a criticism of something, you say, oh, I should not be doing this because it's being criticized. So it could be, either way. So both are called as arthavada. So that arthavada becomes the means for generating this particular arti bhavana. But once you've got this arti bhavana that this is to be carried out, so then the objective becomes, for instance, with respect to Mīmāṁsā, since we're dealing with Vedas, we talk about sacrifices to be performed. So the objective of the sacrifice, that becomes our sadhya. That's what is to be obtained. So for instance, you have to perform a particular yaga, Agnihotra or whatever, Swarga Kama. So if I want Swarga, I'm going to perform some particular sacrifice I'm going to do. So that objective becomes, the sacrifice becomes the objective. And how do I do that? What is it? The sadhana, that is by actually performing all the activities which are mentioned over there. And procedure. So the procedure is, there are different aspects that will be mentioned over there. Many different instructions will be given. So you have to carry out those you have to interpret it correctly and carry out in a particular order. That is the iti kartavyata. This is how it is to be done. So to determine how exactly it is to be done, because it is basically, you can look at it as a set of sentences that are available to you. So we have a set of sentences. How do I actually make sense of these sentences? How do I actually carry them out? In what order they have to be done, or what's to be done first? Different aspects of it. All that comes under that procedure. So to understand the procedure, we need to understand how instructions are to be interpreted. And for instruction interpretation, again, Mīmāṁsā has many different sets of rules and nyayas. Okay, so that's what is important over here.
Term for this linearization, this term for sequencing?
Krama is one aspect. There are other things also along with krama.
Chapter for that.
There's a full chapter for that. There's a full chapter for that.
When you're talking about certain terminologies in Sanskrit that certain speakers may not understand, like Swarga, that if you can...
I will just translate it. Yeah, sure, I'll do that. I will also do that, yeah.
Madam, there's one more thing. See, if you just mentioned, I forgot to mention it, that the Mīmāṁsakas divide the Vedic expressions into 5 groups.
I'm coming to that, sir.
The Arthavada is one, then
yes.
Navodaya and Mantra.
Yes, I'm talking about that as well. I'll talk about it. Yes. Okay, so when we talk about, when we talk about interpreting the statements that are there in Mīmāṁsā, in the Vedas, as per Mīmāṁsā rules, there are a few aspects that we will take up for discussion now. Okay, so one is we need to understand there are different types of Vedic statements. So we'll understand what types of Vedic statements are there, which will cover these things, sir. And there is a classification of the different injunctions. There are different types of injunctions. So we have a classification of injunctions. That's another aspect. And when there are multiple injunctions which are to be understood, how do you interpret these multiple injunctions? Okay, that's another aspect we look at. And which will also include the sequencing mechanisms, which is called as krama, the sequence that we have. And sometimes mostly you have injunctive statements, but there are also some non-injunctive statements. So how do you connect these injunctive statements with the non-injunctive statements? So there again, there are certain rules. We will cover 1 or 2 of them, which we are currently following, or using rather. Okay. So the types of Vedic statements, we have what are called as Vidhi, Nishedha, Arthavada, Mantra, Namadheya. There are 5 different classes, types of Vedic statements. So Vidhi basically is an injunction. It tells you to do something. Okay, it directs a person to perform an action. So tell the truth, right? For instance. Okay, sometimes the examples that I have used here, some are related to the Vedic context. Some we have used general, day-to-day context also. Okay, so it becomes easier to understand. Okay, So, so when we talk, so vidhi is you can look at it as a positive injunction, right? It is asking you to perform an action. So nishedha, it's a prohibitory statement. It says do not harm others. So it's giving you something that should not be done. Okay, so it is a prohibition. So this is another type of statement you have. Then you have this arthavada, which are eulogy and criticism. So these are type of statements that support the injunctions. So for instance, you have Vayu Vaikshepishta Devata. As an example, it says Vayu, being the god of speed, will help you achieve the results faster. So you pray to Vayu, god of wind, as the for some purpose. Okay. So why to him? Because he is supposed to have speed, right? He goes very fast. Therefore, he will deliver the result to you also quickly. So this is kind of motivating us by giving us an example of that person, of this, right? So it can be, you have statements like which are criticism, or criticism could be that you should not do this for this purpose, right? Because somebody did it, they got harmed, so don't do it. Something like that, right? So that is the kind of thing also that you could be there. Or it could be something like, a very, a very important person has already done this before, and therefore, they carried out this particular action. Therefore, we should do it. It could be of that nature as well. So, yeah, pura kalpa and so on. So those are different types of arthavada you can have. Then you have what are called as mantra. So there are certain statements which are considered as mantra. So which are actually, they act as reminders during the performance of the ritual. So when you are carrying out the rituals, you are supposed to say certain mantras. So mantras are like some statements, okay, that have to be said when you are actually doing the ritual. So why is this important? It helps you to be reminded of certain actions that you need to carry out. Okay, so it acts as a reminder to carry out the action. So that's another type. Then you have certain Vedic statements which are called as Namadheya, which means they give the names of a particular sacrifice. Okay, so if there can be a statement, which, for instance, Udbhida Yajeta Pashukamaha, or something like that. So where that Udbhid is a statement, Udbhid, that name, actually does not indicate any object as it, but gives you the name of that sacrifice. So how do you interpret, when a statement is given, how do you interpret a particular word in that statement to indicate a name or to indicate some other aspect which is to be used for carrying out that sacrifice? Those are again discussions which are carried out when identifying how do you fix the name of the sacrifice. So there are again some adhikaranas which deal with how that is to be done as well. Okay. So these are the different types of statements that we have. Okay. So now coming to the different types of injunctions. Okay. So there are again there are different classifications. You find in the Mīmāṁsā literature itself, there are different people who actually classify it in terms of different manners. So we have taken one or two classifications out of that to understand how things can be done. Okay. So this is one particular classification. 1 to 6. The sequencing of this classification is also important, because when you are interpreting a particular injunction, if you can interpret it as belonging to type 1, okay, it takes precedence over others. There are sometimes when you have a statement, you may be able to interpret it as belonging to more than one type. So then how do I fix as to which type it actually belongs to? So there, this kind of order becomes also important with respect to interpreting that injunction. Okay, so we have what is called as Utpatti Vidhi, which prescribes the origination of an action. That is, you have not talked about a particular sacrifice before. The very first statement which is introducing the sacrifice, saying that this particular action is to be done for this purpose or whatever like that, or this particular action is to be done. So that is called as a Utpatti Vidhi. It is the origination of a particular activity or a sacrifice. Phala Vidhi, it talks about it prescribes the fruit of an action, that is the result of an action. Okay, you say phala basically means result or fruit. Okay, so it's a fruit of the action. For instance, when we say Swarga Kamaha, so there is one who is desirous of attaining the heavens should perform this sacrifice. So there, that attaining heaven becomes the fruit or becomes the result that you are aspiring for. Therefore, that is prescribed. Okay, that is the Phala Vidhi. Then you have what is called as Guna Vidhi, where accessories to an action are to be provided. Okay, so for instance, you have Agnihotra, you have to perform the Agnihotra sacrifice, you have a main statement that has been given. So then you may have another statement says Dadhna Juhoti, which means you have to do the sacrifice, whatever something has to be done with the help of curd. Okay, so curd, as in, what we may get out of milk, right? So curd. So now when you say that, so this curd is a subsidiary, right? It's another thing which is to be used. Okay, so it becomes that. So you have these injunctions which are specifying certain subsidiaries that have to be used as part of the sacrifice. So that's the third category, Gunavidhi. Phalaya Gunavidhi, this is a type of vidhi where, injunction where, you are not only specifying the subsidiary, but you are also saying that an additional fruit or result can be obtained if you use that particular object or that particular item. Okay. For instance, Dadna Indriya Kamasya Juhya. So if I use this curd, okay, I will also get good, my organs, all my sense organs as will become very bright, and they'll all be functioning well. So one who is desirous of having all his sense organs to be good should do the sacrifice with curd. So there you have two things, right? So you're also specifying the item to be used as well as the result that will be obtained. So that's called Phalaya Gunavidhi. Then you have what's called as a Vishishta Vidhi. So where you will have the origination of an action specified along with the accessories. Okay, so that's called as a Vishishta Vidhi. And then you have Saphala Karma Utpatti Vidhi, where you have again, it's basically a combination of the Vishishta Vidhi along with the result also being specified. Okay, so sometimes you have these combinations. So these are 6 different types of injunctions. It's one kind of a classification. So all the injunctions that are there can be put into one of these 6 categories. Okay, so that's the thing that we have. Okay, so this is again a picture that's giving you this classification, which is 1 to 6 that we just mentioned about. And in addition to that, okay, yeah, we have 1 to 6 that's mentioned over here. Plus, there is another classification where it is divided into 4 types. So where we talk about principal injunctions or Utpatti Vidhi. Then there's something called Viniyoga Vidhi. Basically, the 3 and 4, which talk about the subsidiaries, they come over here. And then injunction of qualification, Adhikara Vidhi. So Adhikara Vidhi basically deals with anything to do with the what we call as a Phala. So the Phala Vidhi comes over here. Okay. And Utpatti Vidhi, anything which is originating an action, there is 1, 5, and 6. They all deal with this, so that will go in that particular category. So then we have what are called as procedural injunctions or Prayoga Vidhi. So this talks about when there are many actions to be done, what is the krama, what is the sequence that is to be followed. So here there are 6 different aspects that are given, Shruti krama, Artha krama. So one is direct assertion, then meaning based, or it is based on the Pata krama, the way it is read out, and then the position, and then with respect to the principal right, Mukhya krama, procedure, and so on. So you have another set of sequencing mechanisms that are given. That's one classification. There's also another classification of vidhis, which talks about Apurva Vidhi, Niyama Vidhi, and Parisankhya Vidhi. Okay, so this is a different classification. Okay, so here it says all the vidhis can be looked at as Apurva Vidhi, which means it's an initial injunction. It is giving you something that's not been stated anywhere else before. So it's giving you some new information, new source of information is an Apurva Vidhi. Then you have Niyama Vidhi and Parisankhya Vidhi. Now these two come up when you have when there's more than one way of doing something, right? So Niyama Vidhi basically says that you have to do it only in this manner. Okay, it kind of emphasizes one and negates the other, emphasizes one. So that's the Niyama Vidhi. So Parisankhya Vidhi is an exclusive injunction. That is, when you have a particular statement, it says so something else is not to be done. Okay, it's not talking about this has to be done, but it talks about what should not be done. Okay, so it's an exclusive kind of an injunction. So you have a restrictive injunction and an exclusive injunction. So this is another classification that we have. Then of course we have something called Guna Vidhi and Phala Vidhi. This is again another type of classification which is available. Okay. Now why these classifications are important for us is that when we formalize, right, we are trying to formalize this into our logical formalism. Some of these aspects, if we are able to identify which category it belongs to, it helps us to form the correct formalism for that. So that's the reason why it's important. Okay. Yeah, so this restrictive injunction and exclusive injunction is important for us because this is something that always requires some attention, and we have used it also in our formalism. How are you doing on time? Okay. Okay. All right. So this is the so restrictive injunction. So basically, as I said, when two or more methods are possible to reach the goal. So everything is with respect to attaining a final result. So to reach the goal, making one of these mandatory is a restrictive injunction. Okay. So typical example that is given in the Vedic context is you have to pound the corn to remove the husk. Okay. So you have some rice or whatever is to be used for a sacrifice. It comes along with the husk, right? So you have to pound it with a pestle to remove the husk. This is what you have as a statement that is there in the Vedas. So the question here is, why should such a statement be given? The statement is given because there are other ways in which you can remove the husk. For instance, you could probably use your nails to remove the husk. But it says if you use your nails to remove the husk, that does not guarantee that you have done it in the right manner, that will lead you to the final result. So it is a niyama. It gives you a restriction that you have to only do it this way. So that's the restrictive injunction. Okay. Exclusive injunction. So the parisankhya. So exclusive injunction, as I said, it excludes something else. So again, we'll take an example here. Okay. So there is a statement which says pancha panchanakha bhaksyaha. Okay. So what it means is that there are some animals which have 5 toes. Okay. So it says that only 5-toed animals can be eaten. Okay. So what does it mean? It's not saying that eat those 5-toed animals. It says other than these 5-toed animals, others should not be eaten. Right. So it is excluding others rather than saying do this. So it's called as a exclusive, parisankhya, exclusive injunction. So you get the difference between the niyama, the restriction, and the exclusion, right? So that's the difference. So we have these kind of injunctions which are there in the Vedas. Okay. Okay. And similarly, when we talk of multiple injunctions, when you have multiple rules coming up together and so on, so sometimes what happens is that you may have to combine all of them together, and sometimes we have a choice. Okay, vikalpa. So when we have to use what again is spelled out in the Vedas. So one in Mīmāṁsā. So the samuchaya rule or the obligatory rule. So this basically says that if you have several accessories that need to be performed, several accessory rituals that need to be performed to obtain one final result, then all of them have to be carried out. So you have to, it's an and, right? This and this and this and this have to be done in order for that final result to be obtained. That's the obligatory rule. The Vikalpa rule, it says there are multiple options available. So you can use either of them. That example that he gave when he talked about, right, that you have to perform the Agnihotra sacrifice in the morning or in the evening. One says in the morning, one says in the afternoon, one says in the evening. So when do I actually have to perform it? Either of them. So that's a Vikalpa rule. Okay, so that gives you an option of taking one or the other. So for instance, you say take pen or pencil to write. It doesn't mean you'll take pen and pencil to write, right? You're going to take either pen or pencil. And typically, if you have taken pen or pencil, you continue writing with that. You don't keep changing between pen and pencil, right? So that's also something which is there. Okay. Yeah. So another aspect of multiple injunctions is the ordering or the sequencing, which is what is called as krama. So and out of this again, we have 6 different ways in which the krama can be given. The ordering has been done. So we just spend a couple of minutes on this. We have what's called a Shruti Krama. So Shruti Krama basically means, again, this is related to what is spelled out in that particular sentence or that text. Shruti basically means what you are hearing. So what you are hearing is actual words as per the grammar, right? If you say, example, Vedam Kritva, Avedim Karoti. So you typically, there is a statement which says that you have to make a particular thing out of, you have to take this darbha grass, a type of grass, right, which is used for performing rituals. You take that, do something with that, then you do whatever the sacrificial, the place that is to be done. That has to be constructed after that. So it gives you a sacrificial altars. The sacrificial altar. Okay, the Vedim refers to sacrificial altar. So that altar has to be done after you have done this, whatever is to be done with the grass. So it is exactly specified there that you do this and then you do this. Okay, so that is one way of specifying the. Sometimes you have a word which is firstly this has to be carried out. So those kind of words also directly, that is verbally you have that indication that this has to be done first. So that's
this touch.
Yes, Kritva
says this the someone considers the Purva Kale, that which is earlier and which is later.
Right.
That particular suffix tells you.
Exactly. So again, we are going back to basics in terms of how the word is to be interpreted grammatically. So there are suffixes which say that, so the twa suffix, it basically says that something has to be carried out first and what is coming later has to be done next. So that is fixed. It's by means of that word. Okay, that is why the Shruti Krama is there. So Artha Krama basically means sometimes some sentences could have been said in a particular order, but meaning wise, when you read it, you know that the second one has to be done first. You can't do the first one before you do the second one. From the meaning, you get that order. So you will have to change the order based on the meaning. So that's called as Artha Krama, meaning based order. So then you have Patha Krama. So these two are very important. Shruti Krama and Artha Krama are two very important ones. Then you have Patha Krama, so where there are certain sequence of recitation which are given. Again, Patha Krama, Sthana Krama, Mukhya Krama, all these are used when we talk about the concept of this main yaga or main sacrifice and a Vikriti or a modified sacrifice that we talked about, right? So something which is carried out in the main sacrifice, when it is brought to a modified sacrifice, there are certain times when the same order has to be followed or a different order has to be followed. There are certain rules with respect to that. So that is what is basically dealt with in these categories. So I'll not go into details of that. I'll just, because lack of time is one, and it can become too much of information also, right? So that's the idea. Basically, the idea is that those kind of sequence-related matters are given over here. Okay, that's the Krama. Okay, yeah. So now coming to the connection between injunctive and non-injunctive sentences. So as we said, typically we have some sentences which also may not convey an injunction, though most of the statements there are injunctive statements. You also have these non-injunctive statements. So how do you typically connect them? So one way of connecting them is by what is called as hetu-hetumad bhava. So which means you can look at some injunctions as being ordained to be carried out based on certain conditions or reasons. For this reason, based on this reason, you carry out a particular injunction. Okay, so that is what we call as hetu-hetumad bhava. So a simple example, for instance, can be, if it is raining, take an umbrella. Right? So take an umbrella is an injunction. Okay, you should take an umbrella, take an umbrella. But when do I take an umbrella? If it is raining, take an umbrella. So if it is raining becomes a reason, right, for doing that particular action. So you also have statements like this. So this also has to be considered taken into account. So for instance, of course, here we have given it as, if it is raining, take an umbrella. That statement is directly giving you the reason and this. But in the Vedic context, they may not be in a single statement. There could be two different statements. That could be one statement, for instance, when we talked about this Arthavada, right? Theology and criticism kind of statements. Those statements typically are not injunctive statements. So they give you this reason why you should perform a particular sacrifice. So that connection between them is what is also important.
There was just one thing.
Yes, sir.
Maybe you could specify that Nashtashwadam.
Which one?
Nashtashwadam.
Nashtashva. Okay. Ashwarashana.
No. This is and the Arthavada, Vidhi, Vayambam Shetamalo Hetu. That you should perform the Vayu sacrifice
with the Shweta, white, yes.
So one may feel that, well, after all, why should I kill a
white
animal?
Yeah.
Let me not do it. But then, so it is not, by itself, it cannot make you do something. And Vayu makes Shepishta Devata. Vayu is a very fast person. It is not telling you to do anything. But, so, taken by itself, none of the statements can make you act.
But together, when they are taken, they will make you act.
The example is, that suppose two people had come by chariot to a place. Then the chariot of one person was burnt and the horse of one person escaped. Now, you put
the chariot and
you can yoke the horse of one person to the chariot of another person.
Right.
And then they can go.
That
way, these two can be joined together.
Right.
And then they yield
the desired result. So should I repeat what he said? I do not know if all of you got it. I think that is okay, right? Okay. So that's
that's also a true law which has also been applied.
This particular Hetu-Hetumad Bhava, this particular aspect of Mīmāṁsā has been applied in law. illegal this thing, and they're interpreting this thing, they use this particular law in the Indian judiciary system itself. Okay, so yeah. So so I've given you various concepts. So the concepts that we have used for the formalism that we have developed, which is called as MIRA, Mīmāṁsā inspired representation of actions. So these are the topics that we have considered. Okay. So bhavana, the Shabdi bhavana, Arti bhavana that we talked about. Then vidhi, where we looked at three: Utpatti vidhi, Viniyoga vidhi, and Phala vidhi. These are three aspects we have looked at. Nishedha, then Hetu Hetvad bhava. And in Krama, we looked at Shuddhi Krama, Artha Krama, and Pravritti Krama. So these are the aspects that have been taken into our formalism. And how that has been done now will be dealt with by Bhama. Okay. So that followed by other, these are the references. So that followed by various applications of this, of the formalism that Bhama will take it up. Okay. I hope some understanding of the concepts are there. Okay.
Very lucid presentation.
Yes, sir.
A very lucid and exhaustive presentation.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much.
I wish I could do it.
Sir, not a problem, sir. You can do much more this. I will just prepare the slides for you and give it to you. For whatever contents you had already done. I was just thinking of that. If you had just given me your notes, I could have done the slides. I'll do the slides and give them to you. You can use them for the next presentation. So it will be easy for you. Thank you. You don't have to cancel. You just have to open the next one.
Excuse me for a few minutes, please.
Yeah. Right. Yes, so it is, we can just fit them in.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
I mean, I was trying to make some correspondence here. Those, the basic connectors to the second class is all.
Correct.
Negation would be Nishedha.
Nishedha. Yes, yeah.
And then there was Krama, which was very interesting because in many of these contexts, you have emotion, you want to limit all the concepts. Yeah. So, in some contexts, this is possible to obtain certain structures. Like you have a body of text and you want to linearize it.
Exactly.
So the same text has now a linearized form.
Exactly.
So this process is called canonization.
Canonization. Okay.
And there you have a certain kind of structure and the concept model process is called canonization.
Wow, okay. So we'll do canonization as the next one. Sure. Welcome to Mīmāṁsā. Following what Dr. Ranjan said, we have formalized into a logical formalism called as Mīmāṁsā inspired representation of actions, MIRA. And this formalism will go over the syntax and semantics of it, followed by soundness computers and the applications in computer science. So the syntax and semantics, this would be again the time will be around 1 hour, so I will be rushing faster so that I can cover. I have other 3 parts also. So this part is only until computers. The next part will be how we applied it to the computer science in certain domains, and also the comparisons of how our formalism is different with other data blocks. And there I also included 2 examples from law and knowledge data. Following that, future directions. So let's see. I will try to finish off within 6 days. The syntax what we did was the imperative asset. Dot. No, you switched off it. No, that's not.
Hello? Yeah, now it's working. Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the basis with which we develop this formalism is based on Bhavana, which talks about the objective interpretation of instructions, which is the procedure, and the instruction execution, where the objective is the prime motive behind our work is to look upon the goal. The goal that is going to be the prime requirement for our formalism, and when an action is to be done, whether the person is willing to attain the goal. So that is taken as the major factor here. And how they are going to do it is through the Mīmāṁsā principle that we have got. So what we do is we take a set of concepts from the Mīmāṁsā and try to see how we could interpret it such that the goal could be attained or not. And then the actions also, those are from the instruction side. So during the action level, we have categorized that evaluation into 3 types. Can we just move the slide up? There are 3 values here. One is satisfaction, the second one is violation, and the third one, it is down actually. It's no intention to reach the goal. This is the third value. So it is a 3-valued formalism that we have developed. Yeah, this is an example of the instruction interpretation of how we have taken it into our case. For example, Vidhi, it is a positive unconditional imperative, and Nisheda is negative unconditional imperatives. And for that, we have given the examples, and all these examples were taken from the education side, the recent ones that we are seeing. So, for example, if you complete the quiz now is a positive side, and do not skip to read the foundation module is the negation of it. Third one is Palavidhi. Two videos, it is the reason, Hetu. Shruti Krama, there is 2 instructions that is enjoined. So complete the diagnostic test first, then start the assigned module. The first one to be completed, only then the second one. That's Shruti Krama. And Samuchaya and Vikalpa is Samuchaya is the conjunction, and Vikalpa is, or rightly said by Abhishek. Yeah. And coming to the formalism, we have the language of imperatives with IRPB, where capital I is the imperatives that consist of positive unconditional and negation of it, the nisheda of it. And R denotes a reason, and that we have also referred as tau. And the purpose is theta. Here, R and P are taken only as a proposition logic formula. The reason is, if it is raining, that it has already occurred, so it is a proposition. And the goal is the intention based, like how we formulated is, suppose a person wants to achieve the goal, that intention in our mind, it is the goal. Whether he wants or not, that can be termed as an yes or no. So it is actually a proposition for us. Whereas the other types, the imperatives that come under the imperative category. So we are joining imperatives with proposition, and how we are connecting is through all these binary connectives. Each one has its concept behind Mīmāṁsā, where the conjunction is Samuchaya, exclusive or is Vikalpa, and here there are 3 conditionals. First one is Hetu, Hetumad Bhava, which is implied by R. Second one is Shruti Krama, implied by I, and third one is Palavidhi, which is implied by P, goal, this for purpose.
There are 2 ends. I believe they are completely different. And one is for MiSLII, and the other one is the index.
The R1 to Rn and the N
plus N.
R1 to Rn, and
they are different. Okay.
they are different, but they can also be, if we have one instruction, it can have a reason and it can have a purpose. In that sense, we have put it, but it can be different also.
Oh, that's about. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I'm fine.
Yeah. So if these are the, I'll just quickly put through this. These are several formation rules that we have.
And again, the same thing, which if you could see the last line here, this is an imperative, this is with goal, this is with the conjunction, and the exclusive or is the injunction, sorry, with the XOR is, that's the XOR portion, and this is the Shruti Krama, and the last one is, sorry. And the last one is the reason, which is Hetu Hetumad Bhava.
So I is a pair. I is like IV, I.
Okay, if we have to get into it, I is an imperative, do this. P is a goal and purpose. So if I implied by P is do this in order to get. So if you want to be healthy, do exercise. That do exercise is an imperative here. I should have put the numbers here. The rule here. And P is the goal. If you intend to be healthy.
I also feel a problem there because I arrow P actually feels that it is the antecedent and P it is a goal. So the goal is that which provokes the action. So it should come
before. Yeah, that's a debatable topic. The debatable. Yeah. Yeah, we have been working on that for a long time. Yeah.
What's the teleology?
No.
I think the implication of the order makes some obligation to perform which is not the meaning. So, what you mean is that you cannot reverse the implication, you cannot get P without.
That's okay. That's okay. I don't worry.
Don't
worry. Don't worry.
There may be other ways of getting the purpose.
That's okay. That's fine.
Something implies something. It means that it will lead to that action. No, that's not the purpose.
So for that purpose, you're sort of obliged to have I, which is not what you. No, well, I understand it's a debate.
Yeah, that's debatable, but this has a reason why we have put it as a goal, because we can include the reason as well as purpose in the same place.
I think this is also the problem with deontic logic, no?
Not really. No. Deontic deals with the model side, the belief side of it, and where everything gets converted into true or false. Here we are not converting into true or false. We have only 3 values here with satisfaction, violation, and no intention to lead for the goal. So this is no way related to the deontic. Yeah, when we formed certain direction rules, again, some of these are from the Mīmāṁsā side, and this is again very similar to that of proposition side, where CI is if we have 2 injunctions along with the goals, then we can deduce with the conjunction. The second one, there's the elimination. CE1 and CE2 are the elimination side. And this one is from Niyama Vidhi, where we have a Vikalpa, which is, there are 2 instructions, either this or that. And if there is a statement, say, do only this, then we have to derive such that it is only true. That means the action is to be done. The second one is the DEPV, is Parisankhya Vidhi, where the top portion, it is the same type, but you exclude the other portion. J dash is the other portion of it, which indicates that do not do that. So that is a Parisankhya part where we derive. And this is very similar to that of proposition logic, where we assume tau, and that leads to phi, where tau is the reason, which is a proposition part, and phi is the imperative part. Then we can deduce tau implied by R phi. And similar to that, the next one is Shruti Krama, where we have phi, 1 instruction, and do after this. It's the psi. That would be, if you do this, then psi. That would be 2 imperative in a sequence that can be deduced. The third one is have imperative, and that leads to the goal. if you do that imperative, then you do that injunction, that leading to the goal is given as the third one. So we have three different conditional statements, and this rule is C and I, and very similar to that of modus ponens is our next rule, which is conditional elimination of three types. So these are the reduction rules in our formalism. Now coming to the semantics, we have formulated in terms of action performance table, very similar to that of proposition logic where they have true or false, but here combining with proposition of true or false, we have evaluated to three values. One is satisfaction, violation, and no intention to reach the goal, the three values here. And till our formalism acts such that till syntax level, it is only at the instruction stage. And only when the agent or the person does an action, that will be evaluated to S, V, or N. So the imperative is evaluated to S, V, and N. The proposition side is evaluated to true or false. So combining these, everything will be evaluated only to S, V, and N. Here we will have the similar structure of the proposition logic, where the first one is going to be if there is a positive imperative and a negative imperative, how is that to be evaluated? So here we are considering a positive and negative imperative separately, because while Mīmāṁsā talk was there, you would have noticed that the positive, there are 5 statements, and Vidhi was separate, Nisheda was separate, there is no relation between the two. So in that way, we have also formalized such that there is no connection between the two. Like it is not, the negation of positive is not Nisheda. It has only positive one side and negation one side. Negative unconditional imperative I dash one side. And this is the action performance table for imperative enjoining goal, where I is an imperative and theta is the goal. Suppose the same example is taken, the intention to be healthy, whether it is true or false. And walk every day for 45 minutes, if that is true, whatever is given in the green color. If it is satisfied and there is a truth in the intention, then the imperative as such evaluates to S. If there is no intention, which is in the second row or the fourth row, that is in red color, it is N. There is no intention to reach the goal. In other cases, if there is truth, but the person does not do the task, then it is violated. So in that way, this imperative is acting. For the sequence of actions, it is based on the two time steps. This can be analogous to the proposition dynamic logic, where they have the semicolon formula, where this consider this imperative after this next action. But there again evaluated to true or false. Here we are not evaluating to true or false, but only with S, V, and N. So we have the first imperative, where the superscript given as 1 and the second the first time step, and 2 is the second time step. If at both the time step the person does a task, then the imperative evaluates to S, and even if one of the cases there is no intention, it is N, otherwise it is V. And then the third case, which is Hetu Hetumat Bhava, where the left side, the toe is the reason, where the reason is present or not, that is true or false, and phi is an imperative, and if there is a truth in that, and if that imperative stands satisfied, if the person does an action, then the imperative stands satisfied, otherwise it is not. And if there is, the reason is false, we have evaluated that also to no intention to reach the goal. There is a conjunction of imperatives. Here, there are 2 imperatives with 2 different sub-goals, P1 and P2, but eventually leading to the same final goal that is implicitly mentioned. Say, for example, take a pencil to draw and take a pen to write. So I went to P1, that is one imperative, and the second one is take a pen to write. The to write is P2. And if we have 2 imperatives with S, only then the conjunction is S, otherwise it is V or N. Even if one of it is N, it is N, because the end goal may not be met. This is the distinction of imperatives, where we have 2 imperatives, only one of it has to be satisfied. And coming to the soundness we have done with the help of direction rules as well as the action performance table. So it goes like this. If there is a derivation to it, it is also semantically entailed, and this can be verified through the action performance table. And this theorem, although it's there, available in our paper, which was published in 2022. So I would recommend interested persons to go ahead and read about that, the soundness as well as completeness. Completeness is again from the action performance table to the deduction table. What we have said is whatever we said in the action performance table, take a row of it, and if it has to be derived, that can be done using the deduction rules. So those details are available in this paper. This paper is in 2022, Logica Universalis, and we presented it in Greece, and we also got the Unilog Award from India for this paper. Next would be how we applied this in the computer science angle. Next slide, please. No, fully, exhaustive. Whatever I said would be available in that paper.
But the two steps that you're doing were for the two kinds of soundness.
Yes, yes. Statements also there. Both soundness, completeness, and the entire formalism is available in that paper. Other three. Yeah.
Share.
Yeah.
It's on the share. It's already shared. It's already shared.
No, just take it and navigate.
No.
No?
Yeah. We have applied that formalism in AI planning, artificial intelligence planning, and we have developed a tool for special education. Third is the natural language processing. Fourth is the reinforcement learning that we are also progressing now, but one work is already complete. And five is the temporal reasoning, which we'll be presenting on 4th for this conference. Yeah. The first one is artificial intelligence planning. It was taken from Russell and Nordic book, if you are aware of that example. The problem goes like this. In a car, the two wheels have to be fixed. The spare tire is available, is to be fixed in the axle, and the flat tire onto the spare tire. These are two actions that is to be done. So in AI, artificial intelligence, they do it through a language called STRIPS, which is Stanford Research Institute Problem Solver, and that action goes like this. The action will be represented as remove the flat tire from axle. How do they do it? They are mentioning in terms of precondition and effects. The precondition is the flat tire is at axle, and the effect is flat tire is not at axle and flat tire is at ground. The same representation using our formalism of MIRA can be represented in these two equations, where R at FA, this refers to, can be mapped to the precondition, and remove flat tire from axle can be represented as an action of remove flat tire from axle there. And effect would be flat tire is not at axle and flat tire at ground. So this is how we can represent. It's analogous to how we can represent with respect to strips. And this is a simple representation of a flat tire problem. Again, this work is available. So I'm just, for time's sake, I'm just rushing this. And apart from, strips, one major disadvantage between strips and ADL. ADL is action description language, which is a derivative of strips, is the atomic action. It can be represented only as precondition as effects. But in our case, we can, because it has conjunction and the disjunction and plenty of other methods to combine the instructions, it can be put as a composite ones. Like, for example, the first one, removal of spare tire from trunk and removal of flat tire from axle can be expressed as two concurrent actions, where one of the action can be done with irrespective of the other. There is no sequence in it. So this type can be advantageous in AI planning. And one more example is the block world. This is a toy example and also a benchmark example in AI planning, where the initial state that they represent is the number of blocks that are kept on the table. It starts from A to F. And the goal is to be, the robot has to stack one block on the top of the other, which is from A to F. The left side is the initial part and the final one is the A to F is the goal. And this is a simple comparison of how MIRA does and how STRIPS does. The length of the plan is the number of action steps the robot has to take. Whether left for 20 number of blocks, the length of optimal plan according to ADL is 19, whereas ours it is 10. So wherever it is less, the method is actually good. So in this case, yeah.
So what do you mean by optimal plan?
Yeah, optimal plan, the number of action steps taken by the robot.
So the solution written by MIRA
Is
gives you some like partial order actions, because makes things concurrent, because if you said the optimal plan is 19 steps,
yeah, 19.
how come with 10? But I don't understand the
No.
meaning.
When you say length of optimal plan,
Ah.
that's not optimal plan. It is
It's not
length of
optimal.
plan as per
As per ADL. ADL.
Yeah, it's not as per
ADL.
Is,
As per ADL and STRIPS. STRIPS
yeah,
or ADL
so
with.
it's an optimal. So our question is, if that's optimal, how can you do better than the optimal?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. That should be
It
As-
should be length of plan as per ADL.
ADL, and the reference I have not put, the reference to that paper. The paper that referred was optimal plan according to ADL was that. The second application that we did was on special education, where there the children have difficulty in sequencing a certain type of instructions. For example, for wash hands and come dry. Suppose we say to a small child, he would immediately understand. But to a special child, we have to give step-by-step instructions, like turn on light, turn on water, hold on water for 3 seconds. We have to give in sequence. But in general, when we give it as a sequence, we might miss 1 or 2 steps. That will be very difficult for them to understand. So in order to do this structure, we have applied MIRA and the deduction rule specifically and developed the tool for them. So here this is a problem with the manual steps where the intermediate steps may be overlooked. Sometimes the task may be jumbled. We might say, okay, turn on water, then do something else, which would be entirely different. And there the independent task has to be combined together, which is, again, it is not possible in the sequencing level manually. And in this case, the task verifier will be useful. So for that case, we built a tool, and that is relying based on the deduction rules of conditional eliminations, where we have used RIP. R stands for the reason, I for the instruction, and P for the goal. So this is how we apply. Given the reason and R implies I, then I can be deduced using conditional elimination. And again with I, the second, the rule 1 result, apply I implied P, then the purpose can be deduced. So this runs throughout the loop until they get the final result. So this is an example. R is in kitchen, where if you just close the first column and the third column, get the jam jar, open the jam jar, get the butter jar, take the knife, open the butter jar, use knife to spread butter and jam on bread. Okay, this will be somewhat jumbled. So once when the kid is in kitchen, he has to get the jam jar and get the butter jar and get the knife. So those kind of things, even if we give the instructions in jumbled order, how do we sequence it? So that comes through reason. So suppose we say, okay, at the initial point, the kid is in kitchen. That is true. Then the instruction possible are get the jam jar, butter jar, and take the knife. The 3 instructions. One, the kid got it. Then it is going to be, he got the jam jar, which is the purpose. He has it now. And once he got it, open the butter jar, which is in step 2, and open the jam jar. And step 3 would be use knife to spread butter on jam and bread. So this way, we analyzed it and made a tool where given some instructions on the left, it would sequence itself and give it on the right. And suppose the goal could not be reached, it would also say why the goal could not be reached thanks to the deduction rules. Now, the another application we did is for the robotics, and each application that I said, it's available in the paper. I can give the reference for it. So this is a running example where a robot has to move from the hall to porch, and if the robot sends a person, it has to switch on the camera, and the hall and the robot can be assumed to be close to each other, next to each other. Here, the robot starts in hall with camera in off position. So the first portion here is with the LTL specification of the robot in one of the papers. The below specification is the MIRA specification, where we could map each of it. Suppose we say the first one, environment starts with false. The equivalent representation in LTL would be pi naught person. Here it is going to be our hall itself. So if the robot is in hall, it is going to be true or false, but that's there. And it has to go to hall, it has to go to porch, can be given as R hall, implied by R. Which, if it is true, it has to go to the porch. That's an instruction. And if it has to, and then it has already gone to the porch. Once it has gone to the porch, then that will be true. That intention part will be true, then it goes to the porch. Then the second one, if you see a person, then switch on the camera is the second equation here, where X person implied by R on. And if you do not see the person, switch it off.
Just one thing, madam. What are those round things? You see, the square is
next
possibility.
That is according to the temporal logic formula, where always at the next instance, if the robot sees a camera, and that implies the next state if the robot senses a person. So that square implies always. So this is an example of do camera if and only if you are sensing the person. If you see the person, switch on the camera is given through LTL by that method. But
the sequence is given.
Yes, sequence is given, and that is also in terms of the number of states. I'm coming to the next slide, sir. Yeah. For the same example, these are the number of states that is mentioned. Suppose we take 3 states. The left says a person in P2 in this P1, P2 is the persons, and the camera in off position is given as on the left portion. On the top of it, camera is off. Suppose the robot does not see a person, it will go to the top. And suppose a robot sees a person, it goes to P1, porch. And if the person wants to be in the same porch, it is the self arrow that is given in P1. Now, for the same example, from MIRA side, it is only 2 regions are there, and it does not involve states. There, if you could see, there is a camera on and camera off. So true or false for each of it. So the number of states would be huge when there is an explosion of state space. So that can be avoided when we use MIRA. That's what we have claimed it here. So there's another example that from the same paper, the earlier case, the same example, the action of switching on the camera, there can be mapped to a false or true values. Suppose, say the robot is in one place and the item has to be taken from one place to the other. So here it is true, and the other place also is true. There in the case of A or strips of planning, there we would say the action is done. But really it is not the case, because if the robot is broken and someone has placed it, it might still say, yes, the action is done. Whereas the robot would not have physically done that action. Whereas this kind of approach can be avoided with MIRA, because only if the agent does the work, then it is evaluated to S, otherwise it is V. So this is another example of it, where it is only true or false value. Whereas in our case, it would be the agent doing the task, whether it is satisfied or violated. So the third application that we did was with natural language processing, where we classified according to the type of injunctions, whether it is Nisheda, Samuchaya, Vikalpa, Palavidhi, or Ketu Hetumadbhava, which is what is inspired from Mīmāṁsā, and on the right side is what is given already, that the classification, and we could see what Mīmāṁsā gives is much more exhaustive what is available. So that work is also published in one of our papers in World Sanskrit Conference. The recent work that we have done is on the reinforcement learning, where on the traditional side, on the left side, we have the agent and the environment. This is a very typical book block diagram that is there, where the agent does the task, the action, environment is giving a reward. Agent is does a task, and the environment is giving an award, and the evaluation is carried out from the environment itself through true or false value. Whereas in the MIRA side, when the agent does a task, the evaluation is going to happen from the agent task itself with respect to S, B, or N. And the environment here, we are mapping it to reason and goal. On this side, it is going to be the true or false value. So this is an LTL based, the temporal logic based approach of forward, where it is mapped to 1 or 0. And in our case, we are mapping it to S. Yes, in the sense, if the reward is there, and it is yes, otherwise it is not. So this is a very simple example of image of a building with different rooms. The robot is in room 2 and he has to go to 5. So there are 2 ways of going it. One, he can go to 2, 3, 4, and 5. Other way is 2, 3, 1, and 5. So with MIRA representation, it can be given in this sequence. So if this representation is evaluated to S, then the reward is 1, otherwise it is not. So here the intention of the robot also can be taken into account. This is again a reinforcement of single task with MIRA. What we have done is we have taken the whole environment, converted that into a graph, and have a rewarding matrix to it, have an initial state and the final state, have some heuristic. For example, if somewhere we had say a breadth first search or a depth first search should be sufficient here, which is non-heuristic in nature. And through that, we applied MIRA in order to get the result. So this is a toy example of the reinforcement learning frozen lake, where the agent, which is the fellow here, he's going to start from the top portion, which is 0, 0. We marked it as 0, 1, 2, 3, which is 1 or 1, 2, 3, 4, and it has to reach to, it starts from 0 and it has to reach to 15. So what are the paths available? So that path as a matrix we have given, and we have evaluated through MIRA, where if you see the path, it is going to be 0, 4, 8, 9, 13, 14, or 15. There are 5 different paths. Now we apply the intention to it through the evaluation rules. And if there is an intention, only after that, these will be extracted out. And once the intention is there, if the rules are extracted, we apply the evaluation to each of it, where if the agent goes from 0 to 4, it is S. So if it goes through all the process, the agent gets S and thereby getting a reward. And the recent work that we have done is the temporal reasoning, where we use the Krama aspect of it. We have the Krama aspect and expanded MIRA on the top of it, have a sequencing mechanism, and we are also trying to build a MIRA agent with respect to LLM on the top of it, so that it can be used by normal user. The idea is, given some statements, can it be sequenced? And this work will be presented during.
Pravritti Krama does not make any sense. Maybe it is Pravritti Krama or something like that.
Pravritti Krama, yeah, that's pretty mistake, yeah. Pravritti Krama. Yeah. So this work will be presented on 4th of this month during one of our sessions. These are the references for this work. The first work has the AI planning. The second one is task analysis, that's for special children. The third one is for robotics, and the fourth one is on the reinforcement model. Yeah. The next one, please.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Receive a range of applications. So in planning, why don't you like relate the work with hierarchical task planning? Where
We could, yeah.
I think you could.
Yes, yes, definitely, yes.
I'm happy to have seen you because very close to what I was presenting
Okay,
about hierarchical.
we could.
So, yeah, so I think HCM planning is even better, and you may face things. It would not be like a red carpet to get there, but then trigger meetings.
Yeah.
We can discuss. Sure.
Yeah, this is just a comparison of how our work is related to other logicians, as well as a few from law also. So we have categorized the entire formalism in three ways, like Sir started off with the grammarians. Here we start off with the linguistic side, and then we moved on. Then we also said whether it is going to be a fundamental only with imperatives or non-fundamental, because most of the studies that are available on imperative, they are converting into true or false value and then put that down, like strips, for example, or the other portion. There again, the problem is the state space. It booms. So basically, it's going to be either fundamental or non-fundamental approach. The second one is perspective or speaker or addressee. Again, Sir was talking with respect to from the speaker point of view, who is important. From the addressee, if we take, that is the addressee point of view. So we also categorize with respect to that. There is the agent reference, whether we are specifying the imperative to that particular agent. We are mentioning you do the task, or it is general, just do your task. Then fourth, it is going to be indication of actions. Some theories just only say imperatives, some say only with respect to actions. And fifth one is the intention, whether there is some intention attached to that imperative or not. Then whether the action representation is, or the imperative representation is atomic or composite in nature. Like for example, strips that we see is atomic in nature, whereas some other work, it is going to be composite, like proposition dynamic logic or composite. And evaluation, how is that going to be evaluated? Say strip solve is evaluated to true or false value, or temporal logic evaluated to true or false. And whereas in Brana's case or our case, it is going to be t-valued. So these are the list of table available. Again, this work is, as such, is available in one of our papers that is published in 2017. I also give that reference to the work where we have categorized each of the formalism and then said that how each one is different and how MIRA is different from each of it. Then basically we had one approach from Brana's. So I just wanted to compare how our work is different from Brana's. So Brana's uses a single conditional operator. Here we are using three types, and Brana's does not focus on goal-oriented, whereas we do that. And there the negation is of context is avoidance. Here we are focusing on the intention to reach the goal. That is our prime aspect of it. And inclusive disjunction is used in Brana's, whereas ours, it is going to be exclusive. So this is just a comparison between Brana's and MIRA, where we could say if the first row, if it is avoided, the first one would be avoided, whereas ours would be N. And the second one, second row would be V. If one of the imperative is V, this would be N. For us, it would be N itself, because the goal perspective is coming into effect. So we can have a number of differences here. So this is an application of how, if we put the formalism to a robot, how Brana's approach would work and our approach would work. So let us be the same example, two regions, hall and porch. The robot has a option of staying in hall or going to the porch. This is MIRA representation. Whereas in Brana's representation, we have two cases. And this would actually, according to Brana's, it would evaluate it to S, whereas according to MIRA, it would be N for this case. Where switch on the camera to take a picture, switch on the radio to create an alarm. If we evaluate it to both cases, where our expression would be more prudent for this case. Then the other work that was done by Elisa Prisci and Agatha Ciabottini is on Mīmāṁsā deontic logic. So there, what they did was they took, created a basic Mīmāṁsā deontic logic with the obligatory operator or the didactic operator, like do X only if that condition holds. That is with reference only to the context, basically. And this is an example here where if we could see two statements, it is always obligatory not to harm living beings. And if you desire to harm, it is obligatory to perform Shayana Yaga. Now, if we consider two things, two items, both are contradictory, but their case, this would be only referring to that context, this type of statements would be resolved. So they have addressed in that way. And MIRA, whereas addresses internally also within this stuff. And this is one or two applications I will take in MIRA law. Yeah. This is the Atidesha principle, where the first one, there are two yagas that are to be done. And for yagas, the Vikrit ones, the rules of performance are not available. So the Atidesha principle are to be used, which means the same thing was taken with the law, where there are two clerks in intermediate college and who is senior. So the seniority was based on, that was available for teachers. So through Vikriti concept, they assumed that because it is teachers, that can be applied to clerk also. So they used this Atidesha principle in order to solve this case. And yeah, I will go to one of it, which was this was one which we were talking a few minutes back. We talked about a few minutes back. Yeah. The two men traveling in respective horses and chariot, one lost the horse and one lost the chariot to fire. With mutual agreement, horses and chariots tied together and both travel. So this was exactly taken in law for this resolving one conflict. So who would officiate as a principal of intermediate college after retirement to a permanent principal? 2 points are there. One, according to division bench principle presided by Sahai, or another work, through this Nyaya, they brought about this harmonious construction. Only the senior most can be an official, but in exceptional cases, the next in seniority can be officiated. So this is available, and that the reference is also given here. So there are plenty of other works in law that are available that has taken. I have given, they are listed those references also. So this is again one of another interesting stuff from Laghava. There is again an axiom in Mīmāṁsā which says the construction which makes meaning simpler and shorter should be considered. Here the example here is two candidates with equal score in examination of written test and interview. Now whom should be selected? So they applied this Laghava principle because the written test interpretation is easier and it has a shorter interpretation to it, so that it can be taken. And so taken some concepts from Ayurveda, the 3 types of karma. Mīmāṁsā again talks about 3 types of karma: the Nitya karma, Naimittika karma, and Kanya karma. Nitya karma is the daily activities that is to be performed. Naimittika karma is the occasional duties, like only during new moon day or full moon day, the sacrifices are to be made. And Kanya karma, it is only the desire-driven practices. Say, for example, one to progeny, there are certain sacrifices that is to be done. So these concepts are taken into Ayurveda, and they have also used it. Yeah, this is. So these are some of our publications. The first one is the comparison that we specified. It's available in the Survey of Imperative and Action Representation Formalism and Artificial Intelligence Review. And deontic logic from second one. The law is from 3 and 4, and 5th one is from Ayurveda. Yeah. The next would be future action. Can I take 5 minutes? Yeah.
Five.
Five. Yeah. So we have taken only 4 or 5 concepts from Mīmāṁsā. With that, for past 19 years, we were able to establish a few things, and we are still working on. And there are plenty of it more. We are discussing for last 1 week or this with. Well, she has actually retired, and I used to with her, and I used to get some time from her. And we were discussing, many topics emerge, and it's more interesting, and we feel a lot could be done in this area. So one is explainable AI. I'll just brush over 10 ideas here. One is explainable AI, where the Vidhi and Nisheda concept along with Prayojana can be applied. The research direction would be develop AI system that can explain decision. The second one would be AI.
I think spend some time on that.
Yeah.
Okay. I will spend some time on each of these. It's very useful for
Yeah.
right, because it gives you different things that can be done.
Yeah. So here we can develop the system using the decision. The decision, why? Because the concept of the purpose is there, and it also gives a detailed set of interpretations, like the Hetu Hetumad Bhava or the Shruti Krama or the. See, again, we have said only about a few concepts. There are a few other concepts which could help. One would be based on how to find the subsidiary and the main, how to find which is main and which is subsidiary. All this can come into this. And it can automatically say, suppose we feed some set of instructions. And that using that instruction, the machine should automatically interpret and give an explanation based on this approach. This is going to be one aspect of it. The second one is automated decision making.
When you say decisions, in what context? In which context?
With respect to the goal.
Oh.
We have the intention of goal.
Yes.
So whether some action that we do, is it going to be aligning in that purpose? So there we can focus on the here again the ethical AI part can come in, where we can have
Whether the goal itself is ethical. So looking at the ethical
aspect of
but the goal itself is ethical. Given that the goal is ethical, is your means ethical? Right? So you could identify this.
This is the second one, where we can consider the ethical rules with certain do's and don'ts, and from there we could carry out. The third one is the human-machine collaboration system, where we have the auxiliaries and the main calls, and we can also automate, like I said earlier, how to find the alignment between the main and the auxiliary, and with that we'll be able to build the collaboration task, and very helpful with the LLM region also. That would help, where we could put the interpretation of chats inside that LLM and see whether it exists. And natural language understanding, where we have worked sufficiently on this, especially on the classification portion, and also from the interpretation side.
For example, they're saying that categorization centers are the belief. So you want to use the automatic categorization.
Categorization.
Take a piece of text and then run it. And then identify which one.
Which one is Nisheda, and that can be used for LLMs like ChatGPT or other structure in order to classify and focus toward it.
And do question answering based
Based on that. It could be something like tax, Mīmāṁsā tax. We can specify Mīmāṁsā tax for this.
You take care of one thing, you see. Normally, Nishedhas have one negative word in it.
Okay.
Not urjat. But sometimes you see, the negation can mean the verb itself.
Okay.
Say, Prodhan Baljayat. Avoid.
Avoid. Yes.
So there is no negative word in it.
Yes, understood.
That way, if you simply go by that rule, that if there is a noun, then there is a negation, otherwise not.
Yes.
Then Prodhan Baljayat.
Avoid.
Avoid.
In avoidance.
Right.
Yeah. Instead of do not go, avoid going. Avoid.
That can also be considered as a negation.
Never go there.
Explicit,
Yes.
No, not being there.
Yeah. Then multi-agent systems, where right now we have only one agent, where if there are plenty of other agents, how do they communicate with each other and how to interpret what one agent speaks and the other agent listens. So those we can have. Legal AI, which we talked about a few minutes earlier. Then the temporal reasoning stuff. Right now we were working only with Artha Krama, Shruti Krama, and right now Pravritti Krama. There are 3 more Kramas left, and we are finding ways to see how it can be applied. And these can find applicable in self-driving cars, drones, robotic systems, where the sequencing methods are to be there. One more is the AI planning, which we are working on. In educational AI, where the task analysis, which we said, we could extend it to the intelligent tutoring system, where we could break the task into simpler ones, and also for the personalization. If the child is not able to understand, can we build a small task for them so that they can learn better. And this is again combining all that. This is a philosophy as well as a cognitive science, where it combines with bhavana, the psychological aspect of it also. So we can use it for the cognitive science as well. Yeah, that's.
There's one more thing into my mind, you see. So when the earlier speaker was giving the name of the texts, 2 important texts were missing, you see, between Kumarila and Parthasarathi and others. Or even Shalikanatha is Mandana Mishra.
Oh, yeah, Mandana Mishra.
His works on Vini Vivek and Bhavana Vivek, these 2 are extremely valuable works.
Okay.
With various commentaries, they are available in print. And I think maybe they could be utilized for making the work to more exhaustive.
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah. Yes, same Mandana Mishra. Any questions? Yeah.
Very impressed.
Thank you.
I have two questions. So the first one is, so you went very fast on to, I'll say the first formalism of what you put in MIRA, and the rules and the correct and complete. Actually, I was happy that it was off, but now it's on.
Okay.
So yeah, so my first question is, I couldn't see very well what's in there.